This is Women Who Build Empires, a podcast celebrating women entrepreneurs and thought leaders who are turning the tables on outdated old school belief systems and building business empires that align with who they are, how they work, and how they are leaving a lasting legacy. And I'm your host, Emmy Kirshner, serial entrepreneur, investor, and business consultant for ambitious women entrepreneurs who are boldly taking their business to the next level. In each episode, you're going to get to know the women who are unafraid to put it all on the line as they share the stories of how both success and failure have helped them become incredible CEOs. Hey Empresses. On today's show, I'm interviewing Beth Hoving, who is the Senior Vice President and the East Division Business Support Executive for Small Business at Bank of America. So while not an entrepreneur, Beth is one of the biggest supporters of entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs. And I have been so inspired by her enthusiasm and her dedication to helping more women succeed. So I had to have her on the podcast. We talked about in the interview a whole range of different topics, and including what the future of banking looks like for all of us, but especially business owners over the next couple of years. And we talk about her career, which, while she's been in banking for over 20 years, she's held numerous roles and been able to be in different areas of banking. So she's been able to really see all aspects of finance, which helps her help her clients more effectively. But she also talks about how she's utilized different skills and her love for people and for money. Hey, Beth, welcome to Women Who Build Empires. I have been looking forward to this conversation since you and I really first started talking about it like a month ago or a month and a half ago. We met at NAWBO, which is the National Association of Women Business Owners. And in our Charlotte chapter, Bank of America is one of the sponsors. You are an incredible human, so I'm honored that you're here. And as we were just saying, first of all, congratulations on 26 years of service at Bank of America, and thank you for being on.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here as well.
What is that like? Because I think you are the first person I've had on the show, and we're getting close to 200 episodes, who has been at the same company, same business, even though you've had a ton of different roles. What has that been like to be in the same company for that long and watch it grow and change and shift, particularly with the times that we're in now?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's hard to believe. It doesn't feel like 26 years. I don't feel old enough, but it also doesn't feel like it's been that long. But I think part of it is because I've changed roles, and part of it is because the company has continued to evolve so much. So, and I think about when I started in 1997, right out of school, kind of entry-level job. I've always been on the business side of the bank. Mm-hmm. So I've never been on the consumer, like working inside a branch kind of role. It's always been supporting businesses. But when I started, I was actually in the Kansas City area. I grew up in Kansas, so I went to Kansas State University, and then I had moved to Kansas City to take this job with Nations Bank, and they had just purchased a bank in the Midwest, and the department that I joined was called the Credit Services Unit West, because that was as far west as the bank went at the time. So it's one of those, like, it's hard to even remember when we were that small, but it felt like a huge company at the time, right out of school. But over the course of the next 10 years, I mean, those were just the rapid merger years. And so we were constantly growing and changing and taking best practices on from other companies. So it was a very dynamic environment. Mm-hmm. And then there was the financial crisis, and how that forever changed the landscape of banking, especially at large companies. And now I'm more working with small businesses and entrepreneurs, and that's been like the second half of my career. I'm far from done, but that's been a completely different experience for me as well. So it just keeps evolving and changing, as do I, personally and professionally. So time really does fly. And I don't think I could stay with a static company or a static role for that long, but because it's continued to shift, it has certainly worked for me, and excited to see where I go from here and where the company goes from here.
Mm-hmm. It seems like, just like having read your bio and knowing a little bit about you, that it's almost like you've been able to work with, like, under the umbrella of Bank of America within all these different divisions, which are almost like little mini companies in and of themselves. So share with everybody a little bit about, like, what Bank of America offers. One of the things that I have really appreciated in getting to know you and a lot of your team members is that they are very people oriented. Diversity is important. Just having that relationship, which I think a lot of people don't think is possible in a big organization anymore.
Mm-hmm. I'm so happy to hear you say that, because that's exactly what we strive for. But a lot of times there's an impression, especially with small business owners, for whatever reason, that Bank of America is too big, or they don't want to work with a company of my size. And that's absolutely not true. There's what I love about the business side of Bank of America is it's the entire spectrum. So from someone who literally just got their business name and their business license, and they're going to start opening their doors or starting to provide services, we can help them. Mm-hmm. And it goes all the way through, the largest corporations in the world. And we've got services in the whole spectrum. But there's also that specialized expertise at every single level, including our smallest business owners. There's someone who can spend time with you and get to know what are your personal life priorities, what are your business priorities, and then align different solutions to help you. Because it is challenging to navigate if you were doing it on your own. But when you have that personal advice and someone who wants to get to know you and understand what your priorities are first, and then help figure out, okay, right now you might just need a checking account. And, it's never too early to get a business credit card and start building a credit history for your business. Or you can get a car that you use to run your business. Those are things we can do for a brand new entrepreneur. We're not going to give you a real estate loan or offer some, super complex services that you don't need. But there are some things early on. And then as you grow and evolve, you've got that personal touch all along the way to help you figure out, okay, what do I need to do next? And how do I grow and expand, and my bank can grow along with me? You don't have to ever switch.
Right. I just think that's so much fun, but it's so helpful. And particularly, I think as businesses are growing, there's enough things changing. Having somebody that is managing your money and holding things for you consistently, and having that relationship, as I said, with some of your team members, just gives business owners confidence, peace of mind, one less thing on the to-do list to deal with.
Mm-hmm. And, one of the things I love about how banking has evolved is you have so many more options on how you want to do your banking. So I personally do all my banking on my phone. I very rarely walk into a brick and mortar banking office.
Right.
It's everything that I do is digital or on my phone. A lot of people prefer that, but there are times when you want to sit down and have a face-to-face conversation with someone that's more strategic or advisory, or God forbid there's a problem. You have some kind of fraud on your account. You can pick up the phone and call a person and say, okay, help me navigate, even if it ends up being, you can do this online or you can call this phone number. Having someone that can direct you toward that and help you know where to go is so important in those moments that matter, the challenging ones as well as the opportunities. Okay, I just got this huge new contract and I'm going to need some access to capital, or I need some advice on how to take payments in a new and different way. Who can help me figure out what I need and then how to take those next steps?
Right. What other changes, if you're allowed to share, what other changes could be coming for small business owners in banking that would help them grow? And where is the trajectory of banking going just overall?
Yeah. There's a lot of ways that banking is stable, right? Like a checking account is a checking account, a loan, a credit card. Like there's some of our bank products that are just very stable. I think what continues to evolve is how you access it. Like I was just talking about, a lot more digital access, ways to do things online, more and more options to do that, which is more convenient. And you usually get access to your money faster. There's just all kinds of benefits to that. There's also more digital tools out there than I think people are aware of, at least at a large company like Bank of America. So that's where I think the differentiators come in on, checking account. But if there are ways that once you have an account with us, you now have access to these tools that can help you with your cash flow forecasting. Or, and that's true for the personal side and the business side. Are you spending more than you're making? Are there some trends in your bills going up? What does that look like? There's all kinds of cash flow forecasting tools and calculators that you can get in and play around with to get advice. And speaking of advice, I know a lot of the artificial intelligence is the hot topic right now, right? Like
Right.
We've had Erica for years. Now we continue to make that better and better. But Erica, you can ask a question, you can either type it in or actually use voice command and ask her a question, and she'll go find the answer. So you mentioned NAWBO earlier. We were at a NAWBO conference 2 weeks ago in DC, and I was with my colleague Jill, and we got asked a question about, can I get some foreign currency at the local bank account? We didn't know the answer to that, but we literally picked up the phone, logged into one of our accounts, and asked Erica, like, how do we, get foreign currency? And she gave us 3 different options and the amount of time that it would take for each one. I mean, it's really amazing where that all is headed. And then, I think the payment space really continues to evolve. So again, we have the full spectrum of, if you're either an individual or a smaller business, things like Zelle that are available. We have that option for businesses as well, where very easy to make payments, transfers, receive payments, super simple. But as you get more and more complex in your business model, your needs become more complex. You might need merchant services, you might need treasury solutions, foreign exchange, like different payment options. And so that space really continues to evolve. But again, a lot of it's pretty stable. I think the differentiators are the digital platform and resources that are available to you, the expertise that you already talked about. We're constantly putting out industry reporting, bringing advice and expertise based on the industry that you're in, or what's going on in the economy. Here's our predictions on where things are headed. And then rewards programs. So that's something that, banks are competing for your business, and non-banks or other financial institutions, how are they going to reward you for the business that you bring over? So that's what can differentiate like a credit card or a deposit account is, we have a preferred rewards program where the more business you do with us, the more rewards you're going to get as a result of that. So that will continue to evolve and innovate as well.
Okay, so I love rewards. So how does the rewards program work?
Yeah. So it depends on, like, if it's a deposit account, it will be like if you have so much in balances with us, and I'm not going to go into the specific details, although we can, for anyone who has questions. But there are different tiers of rewards based on the balances that you keep with us on, like a 90-day average or something like that. And then it's the different tiers will apply to other banking solutions that you have. So you might get some better rates on things. And then with your credit cards, you're probably very familiar with, credit card points. And so we tend to have 2 different programs, cash rewards or travel rewards. And so again, that's where it's great to have a specialist to sit down with you and say, okay, what's most important to you, cash rewards or travel rewards? And then we have a calculator where we can help you see, like, okay, if you're spending X amount, here's the rewards that you can potentially get. Here's the benefits of being in this rewards program. You'll get better rates on some of your accounts, or better discounted rates on other products. And so lots of different options, but it's basically rewarding you for the business that you do and keep with us.
Cool. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about just your career trajectory, because you've been in a lot of different roles, as we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Walk us through you starting and how different opportunities have come to you, what you've been looking for at different times, because I'm sure your interests have changed over the years, as with everybody. So share a little bit about what that's been like.
So first, I have to tell you a story about how I came to the bank to begin with, because it's interesting. I knew I wanted to go into business. Like, that was pretty solid for me, even as a high school senior. Like, I was actually on a plane with my dad, and this is when, remember, they used to hand out magazines on airplanes. I'll date myself here, but
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you and I are close to the same age, so
yeah. So I picked up this Working Woman magazine, and there was an article on top 10 jobs for women in the 90s. And one of them was human resources. And so I asked my dad, because he was a career Boeing guy, he'd been in the corporate world my whole life. And I asked him about it, and he was like, oh, actually, I think that'd be really good for you, because you've got this head for numbers, but you're also very personable. And that's really the people side of a business. And he let me go to work with him one day and interview all these people in human resources and find out more about it. So I was pretty set in knowing, okay, I want to go into business. So I majored in business management. I had an emphasis in human resources. I accidentally got a minor in economics because I'm such a nerd. I just fell in love with that topic. And I kept using all my electives to take more econ classes. And my advisor was like, you qualify now for a minor in econ.
That is too fun. I am the opposite.
About my nerdy side.
I took the 2 requirements, hated every second of it, and never took another econ class. And then
I think that's much more typical than what happened to me.
That's good though. That's what all makes us different.
Yeah. And had no idea, where all that would lead. And, senior year comes around, you're interviewing for jobs, and it was this odd, every company I was interested in didn't call me back. And, the ones that did, I just didn't feel like a good fit. And spring break came around, still didn't have a job lined up yet. And one of my professors had flown out to Myrtle Beach on a golf trip. And on his flight home, he was sitting next to 2, very chatty women from Nations Bank. And they started up a conversation, oh, what do you do? And what brings you to Kansas City? And they told him they were, there was this merger going on. They were starting this new department. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm a college professor. What kind of people are you looking for? And they said, we really just need people with basic, like, accounting, finance, the minimum requirements. We can teach them what they need to know about banking and about credit, but we really need people with a lot of energy, good communications, good leadership skills to help us get this department up and running. And he got their card, pulled me out of class on Monday, like, do you have a job yet? I said, no, I'm kind of freaking out. He's like, I really think you should call these people. And so that's how I ended up in banking, and at this bank in particular. So it was a really interesting starting origin story for my career at the bank.
That's wonderful, though. It's almost like the universe just lined up for you. And at the right moment, everything came together.
Exactly. And I also use that as a teaching story with my kids on, like, always be nice to your teachers and your professors and make sure they get to know you, because you never know where that might lead. So I started in, like, an entry-level role. We analyzed middle market kind of business banking size clients. They would, send in all their financials and everything. And it was usually a client who already had an existing loan with us, and we would monitor that on a regular basis. So we were looking at doing ratio calculations and looking at their cash flow and debt service coverage. And so I learned credit, which I had no idea how much that was going to benefit me over the course of my career to go through that kind of credit training. It was a fun department, lots of young people, but they were right. Like we really had to sell this centralized model. And so we had to build strong relationships and learn the credit and banking side of things. It was a great opportunity. And a couple of years into that, the department's up and running. Now I'm just, crunching numbers 8 hours a day. That wasn't really the best fit for me. So I was constantly bugging my team leaders on, is there anything else I can do? What can I help with? And they were expanding. So they let me help with some recruiting trips. And then it's like, okay, now we've hired a bunch of people. We've got to train them. And we had a trainer who actually sat in Charlotte, North Carolina. And she happened to be one of the women on the plane, by the way, too. Full circle universe story there.
Great.
Yeah. So we worked out this plan where I would fly out to Charlotte and watch her teach the bankers or teach the analysts this training program. And then I would come back and teach it in Kansas City. So we were on like an every other week schedule. And I just absolutely fell in love with training. I loved being able to help and teach and coach and just really found a passion around that. And through her, I was introduced to people in Charlotte who actually did this for a living and, just focused on training and credit training in particular. So I ended up getting offered an opportunity with the training team. At the time, all training was still done in person. And it was all done in Charlotte. And so the opportunity was in Charlotte. So my husband at the time and I picked up and moved, I think with like 2 weeks notice. We're more carefree then. It's like, okay, we're going to move our whole lives to Charlotte. But I fell in love with Charlotte too. The first time I came here, just the trees, the climate, the size of the city, it was a really good fit. So moved to Charlotte. I ended up being in the training area for about 12 years. So it started out, I was facilitating training classes. I got to travel all over the country and teach and support the business. And then when I started having children, I was like, okay, I don't want to travel as much. So I moved into like some program management. So I would run an 18-month college hire program where I had responsibility for these people throughout the course of their first 18 months. And still got to do some teaching locally, but I wasn't traveling as much. And then moved into more of a consulting role. So still in a training department, but I was like the liaison between the line of business executives on, okay, help me understand your priorities, where there's some potential skill gaps with your people, where do you think it's a skill gap, but maybe it's something else, and consult with them on that. And then if it does turn out you need training, do we have the internal resources to deliver that? Do we need to find an outside vendor who we have a relationship with who can come in and teach that training? And that was a lot of what I was doing towards the end of that 12-year period. Also during that time is when we were going through a lot of mergers. And so there would be a time when, it would be announced, okay, Bank of America is merging with Fleet First Boston. It was probably one you'd be familiar with.
Right.
And so it would be like, okay, stop everything you're doing. You're now officially on the merger team, because there's so many training needs related to bringing two companies together. Mm-hmm. And so I worked on multiple mergers over the years and got a lot of different exposure and experience. I got to learn all kinds of different parts of our commercial banking business and different areas of expertise. And by the end of it, I had really fallen in love with small business. So when I first started to work on, it was actually like a phone-based channel where we weren't even meeting with business owners of that size in person at the time. It was all done over the phone. But just the difference in the conversation, a large company, it's more complex, but they also have an entire HR department, and they probably have their own CFO and in-house controller and accounting. And so it's a very different conversation than when it's you, Emmy, running your business, and you need more advice and expertise. You're probably in more of a growth mode. And so I just really fell in love with that entrepreneurial spirit. I admire small business owners because I don't have that. I'm pretty risk averse. But I love working with them and getting to help support their journey. And so I moved out of learning into the sales side of the business, like the client facing side. So I worked with that phone channel for a while. I became the market manager for the North Carolina market. So I managed the small business bankers, like who you've had some exposure to across Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh. And then I went back into kind of a training academy role to build out leadership programs for our managers. So I had just done the job and they were like, hey, we want to build some training programs for these people. You've got a background in training and you've been in that role. We could really use your expertise. So I worked in our academy for a while and then went back into the line of business in a credit executive role. It was a national opportunity to help support small business lending. And then I became a region executive around 2019. So I was managing the small business team across the Carolinas, Virginia, Maryland, Greater DC, Philadelphia, and Delaware. And then COVID happened during that time. That was a very interesting shift for how we did business, but also how our clients did business and what they were going through, and the Paycheck Protection Program. Like that was a whole massive shift for us while I was leading a pretty large organization. So that was interesting. And then about a year and a half ago, I took a role as a business support executive for the entire East Division. So more of like a chief of staff role. So everything but the sales side of things is what I'm doing now, which has been a great learning experience for me.
It sounds fascinating. And like you've gotten to do, I mean, obviously all sorts of different things, but really utilize the skills that you enjoyed early on too, with numbers and people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. And it's interesting when I have people ask about my career and they're like, oh, like you're now in this perfect fit job. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't even know this job would exist when I was starting out. It's like the dots connect. And when you're looking backwards, you're like, oh, I can see how all that connects. But when I was looking forward, I didn't always know what the next opportunity was going to be, but I followed what am I passionate about? What are my strengths? Always work hard, do the best you can for your clients and your teammates, and people notice, and that's the kind of person that they want on their team. So a lot of opportunities came my way for those reasons. A lot of them I raised my hand and said, oh, that sounds interesting. I'd really love to do that, and had to apply for it.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the disconnects a lot of women have is we do an amazing job and we expect people to just see us and reward us, as opposed to what you've done is really put your hand up and be like, I'm here, create something for me. I'm available. I want a new challenge. And I think that's how we can create and really build a place for more women to step into leadership roles, such as what you're in right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And it does involve taking some risks. And I said, I'm not usually a risk taker, but you really do sometimes have to step into something with confidence, knowing, okay, I can be good at this. I can learn this, even if I don't have all the skills today. I think that's another place where a lot of times women in particular have an opportunity to, there's studies out there that say, a man will look at a job description and, oh, I have 2 of these 10 qualifications. Like, I'm going to apply for this. And a woman will look at that and say, oh, I only have 8 of the 10, I'm not ready yet. And so being willing to say, okay, I might not, I'm not going to walk in and be perfect tomorrow, but I'm confident that I can learn this and, raise our hand more often.
Yeah. For somebody who is thinking about getting into banking or is listening to this and never really thought about being in banking, and I'm going to include just the finance bucket in general, what advice would you give to her?
I would say it's not as boring as you think it is for starters. And hopefully if you've listened this far, you will, you'll see that. I mean, it really is an innovative industry, and it's all about people and understanding people and their priorities and helping them. So the banking part is a part of it. Obviously, you learn, and there's great training programs here. So we will teach you about the products and how things work within the company. But it's someone who's passionate about helping others and serving people and helping them realize their dreams. That's really what finance and banking is all about.
So cool. And what roles are available for women in Bank of America, but banking in general too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many. And it depends on what their background is, right? Like if you're starting entry level, I told my story where I started like more of an analyst role. A lot of people start in the physical brick and mortar bank. Like they'll start as a customer service representative. We call them tellers, right? Someone who's facing off with customers or clients on a daily basis, and then work their way up. So many people in the bank, that was their entry point. But if you've been doing a different career, there could be other entry points and other things that make sense. A lot of times we'll hire small business bankers who have been a business owner because they absolutely understand what a business owner goes through. So someone who's willing to learn and have some good sales skills, but has been an entrepreneur might be of value to us. So a lot of times we hire people from other banks with other banking experience, but sometimes they have zero banking experience, but they've got passion and curiosity and other experiences that make sense. So I would say it's definitely not just one role or one type of person that we look to hire. So our website has, whatever opportunities are available at any given time, but it's also good to find someone you can talk to about, okay, where might be a good fit?
Yeah. These are the things I'm great at, and what are the options?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Beth, this has been so fun. Share with everybody if they want to learn more about Bank of America, where they can do that, and then how they can connect with you.
Absolutely. So as far as Bank of America is concerned, our website is phenomenal. So just bankofamerica.com. If they're an entrepreneur, there's actually a tab for small business. And there's a great resource site there with all kinds of articles and tips, whether you're starting a business or growing and expanding, or if you're looking for access to capital. There's actually an access to capital directory where they can understand, not just traditional loans, but what are grants that are available? What are other community development institutions that I might be able to access? So there's a ton of information there, as well as if you're looking for a specific product or a solution, that's the best entry point. If you're looking to start a relationship with a banker, that's where it's good to, if you've already got a solution with us, if you're already a customer, reaching out and asking for that personal touch. You want to sit down and talk to a specialist, and we'll find the right person for you. You can come to me personally, because I'm going to give you my contact information as well, and I will get you to the right local specialist wherever you're located. For me, so it's Beth Hoving, Hoving. I'm sure it will be on the podcast, but I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's probably the best way to initially connect with me and find me. But also my email address is just beth.hoving@bofa.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is as much fun as every time I get to talk to you, Emmy, when we're at NABO meetings, and it's been so great to welcome you to Charlotte.
Oh, thank you. And like you, my first time in Charlotte was a year ago, and I got off the plane, got to Uptown, and I was like, oh, I'm home.
Mm-hmm.
And I've loved being here for the last, I think, 7 months, 8 months, however long it's been. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
It's my hope that you find at least one nugget of value in each episode of Women Who Build Empires. And if that's true, please follow and share Women Who Build Empires with your friends and leave a review on Apple Podcast. Your support is what will help this podcast be found by more women just like you.